If I were rich, I would give most of my money to the poor. But instead, I'm poor, so I give most of my money to the rich. Today, I'm going to recap a 1997 action crime film called Spawn. The film initiates within a traffic control room at an airport in Hong Kong, where an individual barges in and eliminates all in sight. Next, he retrieves a rocket launcher from his belongings and readies it for use. Upon the landing of a small personal aircraft at the hangar, he readies his weapon and lies in wait for the disembarking passengers. Once he pinpoints his main target, he fires off his rocket, resulting in the plane being engulfed in flames. At this point, the individual is revealed as Al Simmons, a former military serviceman turned hired killer. He promptly engages the self-destruction feature on the launcher before departing the room. Shortly thereafter, the room goes up in flames, witnessed by an unknown individual from afar. Meanwhile, back at an A6 command center in the United States, Jason Wynn is tuned into a news broadcast lauding Simmons for his actions. Subsequently, he enters into a discussion with a demon called a clone, who was dispatched by the devil to perpetrate violence across the globe while concurrently overseeing wrongdoers and promoting the devil's cause. The clown in question, questions Wynn about the ultimate weapon he had promised, but Wynn pleads for more time, which the clown accedes to. The clown also tasks him with recruiting Simmons for an undisclosed purpose. The following day, Simmons leaves his home, saying goodbye to his pet dog Spaz, and hops into the passenger side of Terry's car. Terry hands him a newspaper article about an airport incident resulting in many civilian casualties. He further informs Simmons that recent missions orchestrated by Wynn have led to widespread havoc in their wake. As they drive off, they are closely monitored by the same unidentified individual from the airport scene. They eventually arrive at a secure facility, where Terry assures Simmons that he will keep an eye on Wynn. Shortly thereafter, Simmons confronts Wynn in his office, chastising him for his failure to keep the airport conflict zone devoid of innocent bystanders. Despite this, he describes it as a regrettable but necessary sacrifice. Simmons then expresses his wish to quit, which Wynn resists but ultimately agrees to. After Simmons' final mission, Wynn will arrange for his transfer, which includes an operation to infiltrate a biochem plant in North Korea and to meticulously neutralize any biological pathogens. Simmons finally agrees to undertake the mission. Later that night, Simmons dispatches a guard to gain entry into the North Korean biochem plant. As he ventures deeper into the facility, he stumbles upon explosives strapped to a biochem container, leaving him perplexed. Just then, Wynn shows up, stating that the mission's priorities have been altered. However, Simmons retorts that there's a village in close proximity to the plant, and any virus release would result in mass casualties. Despite Wynn's argument that the local populace could serve as test subjects for the virus, Simmons rejects the idea and points his weapon at Wynn. Shortly thereafter, Priest, who is Wynn's most skilled assassin, fires at Simmons and douses him with liquid gas. Wynn then tosses his lit cigarette onto Simmons, causing him to become instantly engulfed in flames, and the two make their exit. In the process of fleeing, Wynn sets off the explosives, leading to a massive blast that claims Simmons' life. Following this, a severely burnt Simmons finds himself waking up in a church, where he is mocked by the clown for his charred appearance. He then descends the church's staircase and steps out into an alley where he catches sight of his own horrifically burnt reflection in a pool of water. Suddenly, he encounters the same unidentified man who explains how long Simmons has been absent and describes Rat City as a welcoming place for all. Nevertheless, Simmons is indifferent and walks off. Later, Simmons returns to his home, perplexed by the events following the explosion as his memory fails him. He assumes the incident to be recent, but he had been informed by the man that he had been dead for 5 years. Upon reaching his home, he observes a birthday party with a clown in progress and makes the shocking discovery that Wanda and Terry are now a married couple. Simmons' dog, Spaz, instantly picks up his scent and trails him, with Wanda's daughter, Cyan, following the dog. As Cyan tails the dog, she spots Simmons lying on the ground and offers him some candy. On spotting the burnt figure, Wanda panics and calls out to Terry, who chases him away. The clown witnesses all this, assists Simmons by pretending he's his friend named Crispy, and they depart. Wanda confides in Terry that she heard the stranger call out her name, but they fail to recognize him. Terry comforts her, suggesting they get the children indoors. Subsequently, in a secluded alley, the clown reveals his true demonic nature. Concurrently, Simmons complains of a sensation of his skin, feeling like it's about to split open, to which the clown explains it's just his necroplasm in the early stages. Simmons expresses a desire to go to the hospital, but the clown reminds him that he has been dead for 5 years. The clown then subjects him to a series of flashbacks to jog his memory. He explains to Simmons that he perished in an explosion and was sent to hell, where he encountered Malebolgia, who offered him the leadership of his army. In return, he would get to see Wanda again, and offer Simmons accepts. However, Malebolgia instructs him to assassinate Jason Wynn. Simmons refuses to believe this, prompting the clown to take him to his grave. At the graveyard, Simmons discovers his tomb and proceeds to unearth it. He finds his charred remains and an aged locket with a picture of him and Wanda. As he grieves over his death, spikes start emerging from his body, encasing him in armor-like skin. The clown then proclaims him Spawn, General of Hell's armies. Simmons places the locket onto his chest, which his new armor absorbs. Following this, the clown returns him to the alley, informing him that he needs to leave him for a while as he has other matters to attend to. As the clown departs, Simmons tests out his new armor, remarking that it will prove useful when he confronts Wynn. The enigmatic man makes another appearance, informing Simmons that every choice carries consequences. He reveals himself as an assassin, just like Simmons, albeit his assassination took place half a millennium ago, eliminating the kingdom of Saxony. He finally introduces himself as Cogliostro. Subsequently, at the A6 headquarters, a news segment airs featuring Terry, who now serves as the spokesperson for A6, defending the CIA and its director, Wynn. In conversation with Priest, Wynn hears and appreciates this, and she proceeds to insert a CD into a projector. The ensuing presentation reveals the completion of Wynn's ultimate weapon, Heat 16, a biological weapon for which only he possesses the antidote. He declares his impending control over the world. In the meantime, Simmons infiltrates the facility, overcoming the guards. He then makes his way to the weapons depot and arms himself with formidable weaponry. At that instant, Terry enters Wynn's office, requesting a private conversation. As Priest departs, Wynn praises Terry for his adept management of the media and offers him a drink. Terry expresses his discomfort with perpetuating lies to cover up international missions and his desire to gain a deeper understanding of the field operations data. However, Wynn reminds him that his role is no longer that of an analyst. Despite this, Terry insists on scrutinizing the data. Wynn asserts that he runs his organization as he sees fit, and Terry's responsibility is to ensure public approval. As they both exit, Terry spots a CD labeled Special Ops. As they depart in a car, Simmons, armed and ready, observes them from a rooftop. When they arrive at their destination, Wynn warmly greets several guests. He informs them that he merely facilitated the development of Heat 16 and raises a toast to his partners, who are his beneficiaries. During this, Terry receives an urgent call regarding a code red security breach at the armory and promptly informs Wynn. Assured that security is en route, they make their departure. Unexpectedly, a figure armored in red and sporting a cape crashes through the glass ceiling. It's Simmons. He quickly seizes Wynn by the throat and jogs his memory of who he is. He accuses Wynn of sending him to hell and throws him onto a table. Simmons then takes hold of Terry, who tells him about Wanda's devastation following Simmons' death. Spotting Wynn attempting to flee, he hurls Terry aside and gears up to kill Wynn, but Priest opens fire on him. Despite being shot at, Simmons observes that his armor absorbs the bullets and shields him. Wynn, however, orders Priest to eliminate Simmons, and she tries to deliver a kick to his groin. Yet his armor not only defends him, but also bites her leg in retaliation. Simmons hurls Priest against the balcony railing, and she taunts him about his charred exterior before he fires his weapon at her. Later, the clown applauds his act, but their celebration is cut short when more soldiers appear, shooting at Simmons and causing him to crash into a window. As he is falling, chains emerge from his armor, saving him as he clings to the side of the building. Upon the arrival of the police, they spot him on the building's exterior and fire at him in an attempt to apprehend him. In response, his armor manifests a large red cape that camouflages him against the building. As the police fail to locate him, he attempts to flee, but part of the building edge gives way. The police notice him and open fire from below. Attempting to evade the gunfire, he loses his footing and falls off the building. The red cape, however, comes to his rescue, enabling him to glide towards a church. Soon, medical personnel arrive at the scene with Priest's body. Wynn grieves the loss of his assassin. The clown subsequently contacts Wynn, who accuses him of failing to warn him about Simmons. The clown dismissively responds that he didn't anticipate Simmons being ready so quickly. Wynn also informs him that the Heat 16 is now operational. Before ending the call, the clown reveals a memorandum stating a device will be installed in Wynn's heart, connecting his heartbeat to the Heat 16 bomb. Consequently, if Wynn's heart ceases to beat, the bomb will detonate. Meanwhile, at a conference, Wanda discusses the ongoing situation at the biochem plant in North Korea. She then notices the burnt man observing her, but he immediately retreats, casting a glance at her daughter, playing in the back with Spaz. Simmons approaches Cyan and Spaz, checking on their safety. Cyan comments on his strange yet interesting face. When she asks his name, he introduces himself as Spawn. She, in turn, introduces herself as Cyan before going back to her mother. Elsewhere, Malebolgia summons the clown to hell, reprimanding him for failing to ensure that Spawn holds up his end of the deal. However, the clown voices his dissatisfaction about Spawn, not him, being appointed the general. Malebolgia reminds the clown that Spawn must decide to kill Wynn and release the virus for his army to be complete. Therefore, he grants the clown one final opportunity to accomplish this task. Back at the conference, Wanda reunites with Cyan, who informs her about her interaction with Spawn. Suddenly, Terry arrives, urging them to leave immediately. However, Wanda demands an explanation. Terry reveals that Wynn was attacked and doesn't want to risk their safety. As they rush towards their car, Cyan inquires about Spaz, who is still with Simmons. Terry reassures her that Spaz can find his way home, and they depart without him. Later in Rat City, a man and a small boy sift through garbage for food. The boy spits out what he's eating, complaining about its rotten state. The man scolds him for complaining and raises his hand as if to strike him. Then Simmons steps in, fleeing the man away from the child. He is about to fire at the man, but the little boy intervenes, pleading for him to stop as the man is his father. Following this, Simmons departs, with Spaz trailing behind him. Simultaneously, Wynn is being prepared for surgery to install the device in his chest. He is informed that should his vital signs drop, the device connected to his heart would instigate the worldwide spread of Heat 16. This device is allegedly a safeguard against potential assassination attempts. Nevertheless, Malebolgia hopes for Simmons to kill Wynn, initiating an apocalypse in the process. Back at the church, Simmons is arranging his armaments when the little boy from earlier approaches, introducing himself as Zack. As Zack muses aloud about the possibility of them being in hell, the clown appears and asserts that they are not in hell, but they soon will be. Once they are alone, Simmons shares his deduction that the clown had ordered Wynn to kill him. He questions the clown about why he was selected to lead the war before attempting to kill him. The clown explains that it was Simmons' destiny as he was groomed for the general's role through covert missions. Simmons reacts by seizing the clown by the throat and hurling him aside, refusing to enlist or command his army. The clown threatens to kill Spaz if Simmons doesn't comply, but Simmons fires at him first. In response, an incensed clown divulges his identity as the Violator and morphs into his demonic form. The Violator ensnares Simmons, who retaliates by shooting at him. They both plummet from the church balcony, landing in Rat City's alleyway. The Violator slams Simmons into the spiked fence of the church before reverting to his clown form and taunting Simmons. As he departs, Cogliostro comes to Simmons' rescue. The armor heals Simmons back, but he succumbs to the pain and faints. Upon regaining consciousness, Simmons finds Cogliostro holding a sword to his throat, which he promptly removes. Cogliostro shows him the aftermath of his clash with the Violator in the alleyway that resulted in numerous civilian injuries. He reminds Simmons that he is no longer the man he was. He is now Spawn. To achieve liberation, he must let Wanda go, Cogliostro counsels. But he also emphasizes that the conflict between heaven and hell hinges on their decisions, and that such choices necessitate sacrifices. Simmons offers Zack an apology for the incident in the alleyway before leaving to prepare for his impending confrontation with the clown. As he loads his firearms, Cogliostro points out the futility of guns and begins instructing him on how to manipulate his necroplasm armor. He advises Simmons to control the armor through clarity and focus. By visualizing the object, the armor will respond accordingly. Before Simmons sets off to find Wanda, Cogliostro warns him to conserve his powers, for depleting them could cost him his life. Consequently, he discards his weaponry, placing complete faith in his armor, and hands over Spaz's collar to Zack, asking him to locate the dog. He then appropriates a motorcycle and departs. En route, he encounters the clown driving a truck, who attempts to flatten him, but Simmons employs his cape to form protective armor. In response, the clown ejects necro goo from the vehicle, causing Simmons' motorcycle to skid. The clown reverses the truck and charges at Simmons, who is sheltered beneath his cape armor, leading to a massive explosion. Concurrently, Terry infiltrates his office database, extracting confidential files onto a CD. Back at home with Wanda, he scrutinizes the data on the CD, discovering Wynn's plot to seize global control using Heat 16. Later, Wanda has a dream involving Simmons, but is awakened by Cyan's request for a beverage. At the same time, Terry contacts a news reporter from earlier and informs her that he possesses incriminating evidence against Wynn, which he subsequently emails to her. Soon after, Cyan and Wanda step into his office, closely followed by a weapon-clad Wynn. Wynn catches sight of the in-progress email on Terry's computer and shoots the device. He's about to fire at Terry when the doorbell chimes, prompting Wynn to instruct Wanda to answer it while he stays with Cyan and Terry. On the doorstep is the clown who informs Wynn that Spawn is fast approaching. Shortly afterward, Simmons arrives to find Wanda restrained, and Wynn threateningly brandishes a knife against her throat, demanding that he enlist in Hell's army or watch Wanda die. Wynn doesn't afford Wanda much deliberation time before he plunges the knife into her chest. Infuriated, Simmons snatches Wynn and hurls him against the door, which cracks open to reveal a captive Cyan and Terry. Wynn clarifies that killing him would trigger the device connected to his heart, releasing the virus and exterminating all life on Earth. With nothing left to lose, Simmons tosses him into the fireplace and moves to stab him, but Wynn argues that Simmons' action would also result in Cyan's death. This revelation halts him, so he uses his necroplasm to seize the device in Wynn's chest and bombards it with his gaze, but it remains inert. He attempts to free Wanda's body, but she revives and stabs him, unmasking herself as the clown in disguise. The clown berates Simmons for failing to execute Wynn, which would have sparked the apocalypse. Out of the blue, Cogliostro appears and impales the clown with his sword, shocking everyone. He then liberates Wanda and extracts the knife from Simmons, advising him to concentrate on recovery. Suddenly, they are enveloped by flames, and the clown transports them to Hell. The clown, now transformed back into the Violator, engages in combat with Cogliostro. Simmons intervenes to prevent the Violator from killing Cogliostro. However, due to the unfamiliar fiery landscape, the Violator gains an upper hand, forcing Simmons to strike his throat and incapacitate him. Subsequently, Malebolgia faces off with Spawn, informing the demon that he will never command the legions of Hell. They manage to elude capture, escaping just in the nick of time, as Malebolgia's henchmen are on the verge of subduing them. Returning to Wanda's home, Simmons finally comes to terms with the romantic connection between Wanda and Terry. Shortly after, Zack shows up with Spaz and Tao. Unexpectedly, the Violator materializes behind Simmons, seizing him and trying to devour him. Cogliostro advises Simmons to engage his armor, which he does. He forms spikes around his head that penetrate the violator's mouth, and his chains sever the creature's head. Following the battle, the severed head of the violator reverts back to the clown's form before being banished to hell. Later on, the police and media descend on Wanda and Terry's residence. Having received the incriminating evidence against Wynn, they broadcast it worldwide, leading to Wynn's incarceration. Wanda and Cyan are unharmed, with Cyan seen wearing Simmons' locket. The film concludes with Simmons taking up residence at the church, resolving to safeguard Earth and assist humanity. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.